Hello, everyone. Hi, welcome to Leisrealtalk. Hi, I don't know what that lighting, there's some light over there. I don't know where it come from. Anyway, hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Well, the biggest news this week is TikTok, right? We're only 2 days into the week, but TikTok is arguably the biggest news concerning the United States and China. All right. Let me tell you what I think. I'm not so optimistic about it, and I'll give you why. So, this yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah. So yesterday, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and China's Vice Premier He Lifeng had a meeting in Madrid, and after that they announced that a framework agreement was reached between the two countries for China to sell the US part of TikTok to the United States. And it's their fourth meeting so far. And President Trump today extended the ban deadline to December the 16th of this year. It's the fourth delay to allow time to finalize the sale. And China conceded on licensing TikTok's algorithm and user data well, actually, I'll address that later. So this is interesting. I want to tell you about this. Scott Bessent reviewed at a press conference that during the negotiation, Beijing first presented a long list of demands, such as tariff reductions in exchange for its consent to a TikTok sale. But US warnings, including the possibility of shutting TikTok down, forced Beijing to abandon hopes of extracting concessions from the USA. And the two sides eventually settled on a framework agreement. So, and President Trump today that he has a buyer, or the US has a buyer, and that he will speak to Xi Jinping this Friday, and then the two sides will enter real negotiation. And like I said, he has extended the ban to December 16th, which is the fourth ban. And this delay is necessary so that the two sides can carry out negotiation. I told you I don't have a positive feeling about this deal. I do not believe that it will come to fruition because there are several key issues driving the Chinese and the Americans apart. So let me give you my rationale. The agreement was part of the bilateral trade negotiation. So far, the two countries have held 4 rounds of talks, but produced little progress. The first round in Geneva was in May. It delivered a 90-day pause. The second in London, which was in June, was largely a follow-up. The third in Stockholm in late July extended the tariff truce by another 90 days to, I think, November the 10th. The last meeting in Madrid wasn't planned and was actually announced abruptly. It's an impromptu meeting set up to discuss TikTok, in my opinion. So far, the only real outcome coming from those meetings has been the TikTok framework. So why such rush to close the deal on TikTok? Well, the answer is the Chinese was anxious. It looks like China made concessions. I mean, this was confirmed, not just confirmed by Scott Bessent, but also by the Chinese at a press conference in China today. Wang Jingtao, Deputy Director of the Cyberspace Administration of China and a participant in the talks in Madrid, offered some details. He said the two sides reached a basic consensus to resolve the disputes over a third-party operation of US user data, content security functions, and IP licensing, including the algorithm. So it looks like the two sides reached a basic consensus on those three items. So the key word here is basic consensus. Now, at first, I was surprised by this outcome, but the more I looked into it, the less surprising it became. China made a concession on TikTok to pursue what it really wanted, which is a Trump-Xi summit in Beijing. And this was reported by the Wall Street Journal. According to the journal, Chinese diplomats have been actively lobbying Trump to visit China for the past 2 months. And US officials have floated the late October APEC summit in South Korea as the venue for the two leaders to meet. But Beijing prefers a bilateral summit on its own soil. So that's when things clicked. Xi Jinping is betting everything on Trump's visit to Beijing to help him survive his internal power struggles. That's why he's willing to make a concession on TikTok. He does not want to step down. His eyes are on the upcoming fourth plenum. To justify his grip on power, he needs validation from outside. And all of Beijing's demands on Washington are aimed at securing Trump's appearance in Beijing before or after APEC, which will be held, I think, from October 31st to November 1st in South Korea. So such a meeting would give Xi Jinping a critical political boost at the party's fourth plenum, also scheduled for late October. I mean, we haven't heard the exact date, but people think it's the second half of October. Now, for decades, Chinese leaders, from Jiang Zemin to Hu Jintao to Xi Jinping himself, have treated US recognition as a major endorsement that they can use for leverage within the party. So Xi wants Trump's visit for several reasons. First, he believes that on home turf, he can present the trip to the Chinese people as proof that the US president needs something from him. Second, it allows him to project strength to the party elite. Third, it lets him showcase internationally that China stands shoulder to shoulder with the US, even to the point where Washington's leader travels to Beijing to seek him out. For Xi Jinping, such optics provide the desperately needed endorsement at the fourth plenum. Now, you may ask, what about Xi Jinping's opponents, the anti-Xi forces? Haven't we talked over and over about the fact that Xi Jinping has lost power? Why would his opponents allow him to gain politically by inviting Trump? Well, my answer is they are in this together with Xi. The anti-Xi forces are now controlled by the reformists faction, people like Wen Jiabao, Wang Yang, Hu Chunhua. These people desperately want to rebuild the country's economy. By having the US president visit China, Beijing can use the optics to boost confidence in Chinese market and attract investments. It's actually the biggest confidence booster. Nothing else can compare. So they won't oppose it either, right? So they're in this with Xi Jinping because it serves all of their purposes. But after Xi Jinping stabilizes his position, he is more than likely continuing push his leftist anti-West policies. And those policies may return to beat out his opponents. But that's the next step. For now, both the Xi forces and then the anti-Xi forces are on this together. The Wall Street Journal also said that the Chinese Premier Li Qiang will attend the UN General Assembly later this month, and he is expected to meet senior US officials to press for a Trump visit and to signal that if Trump goes to China this year, Xi Jinping will be willing to attend the G20 summit next year in the US. So here's the big question. Will Trump go to Beijing? I highly doubt it. My answer is no. Here are my reasons. First of all, the Chinese want Trump to go to Beijing so Xi Jinping will come attend G20 next year in the US. I think it will be held in Miami in one of the Trump venues. I don't know if it's one of his golf courses or I don't know, it's one of Trump's venues in Miami. So that's not a although Trump's visit to China will benefit Beijing tremendously, Xi's visit to Miami will gain Trump nothing politically. Instead, he may be accused of being too cozy with dictators like Xi Jinping and Putin by his opponent, by the Democrats. Secondly, judging by the previous 4 trade talks between the two countries, China and the United States are far from reaching any deals. Now, all 4 talks took place in European cities. They rotate them. They're neither in DC nor Beijing. This shows the two countries lack fundamental trust. Most countries send their delegates or delegations to DC to negotiate, or the US trade representatives go to their countries, right? Now, if China and the United States avoid each other, or if they can't even agree on where they're going to meet, I highly doubt the two sides would reach any substantial deals concerning trade in a month. And if there's no deal, Trump will not go to Beijing. He will look awful if he did. This all reflects the fundamental difference between the two countries. China is authoritarian, one-party state. The US is a democracy. So for Xi Jinping, he cares only about his power at the moment, not necessarily his economy or his people. Washington seeks substance, and Beijing wants optics. That's why negotiations between the two are always difficult and unlikely to achieve anything. So far, Beijing has ignored Trump's demand for major increases in US soybean imports and has done nothing to stop the flow of fentanyl-related chemicals into the US. In addition, China has not kept its promises to ease rare earth restrictions, but has tightened its control over supply. So rather than opening up exports, Beijing has introduced new measures that further restrict the global rare earth market. If this stalling does not stop, Trump's frustration only grows, and there's no way he's going to Beijing. Now, if Trump refuses to go to Beijing, here's the problem. Will Beijing still allow the TikTok deal come forth? It's very hard to say. Remember, what happened to my internet? What happened to the internet? Can you guys see me? Yeah? Okay. Okay, I have to call my internet carrier again. It's awful. I'm paying a lot of money on fiber, and this is still not working ideally. Oh. Anyways, so the question is, if Trump refuses to go to Beijing, will the deal still come forth? My answer is it's hard to say, because all we have so far is a framework negotiation. A framework agreement. And in Beijing's own words, a basic consensus. So anyone in business knows it's one thing to have a framework agreement, and it's another to negotiate the terms. And Beijing is notorious in keeping its promises. So if Trump doesn't give Beijing what it wants, the CCP may walk back on any agreement. The CCP's tactic is to drag out the trade talks while making minimum concessions. Its strategy is to stall until after next year's midterm elections. They're gambling that Trump will lose his majority in the House, making it harder for him to press his policies. And think about it, the midterm elections is only about a year away, and it's not that far. So the stakes are high on both sides. From my perspective, President Trump should not go to China, period. Um, that's the only way to avoid the Xi Jinping curse. So if you missed my last program, please go back and watch it. I made a program about Xi Jinping's curse. All right, so that's my argument number one. Now, my second reason is the concern of the deal itself. Bessent said the TikTok deal's commercial terms are complete, but he didn't reveal the details. But he did say the commercial side of the deal will preserve the app's, quote, Chinese characteristics, though he did not elaborate. And this is what he said. He said they are interested in Chinese characteristics of the app, which they think are soft power. Bessent reportedly said this. He said, we don't care about Chinese characteristics. We care about national security. Now, I think Secretary Bessent and the US government should not underestimate the phrase Chinese characteristics. This phrase worries me. We know there are not Chinese characteristics. There are CCP characteristics. Mark my word, anytime Beijing says Chinese characteristics, they mean Chinese Communist Party features or CCP features and attributes. We should not keep any of those in the app for Americans. They are only detrimental. CCP is the master of deception and have always dressed up their lethal weapons as sugar-coated, harmless cultural programs like the Confucius Institute and the student exchange programs. So Americans shouldn't make the same mistake anymore. The US government must remove these Chinese characteristics from the app, period. And so this may become a major issue during the real negotiations or even operations. My third concern is about the ownership of TikTok. The new ownership has not been finalized or has not been announced. Reports suggest that the Chinese will still own 20%, and a consortium of investors, American investors led by Oracle, will own 80%. Well, first of all, I don't believe this co-ownership style. I do not believe in co-ownership with the Chinese. The Americans should own it 100% or nothing. Co-ownership with the Chinese is breeding ground for future problems. Also, Oracle's role also makes me worried. Earlier this year, Trump said that he'd be in favor of Elon Musk or Larry Ellison buying TikTok. Larry Ellison is the co-founder of Oracle, who is still the chairman, I believe. And he's now the world's richest man, overtaking Elon Musk. And so it sounds like he's going to be involved in TikTok. Now, I have a problem with Mr. Ellison's involvement in TikTok. Picture, here it is. All right. This is his new wife. He married a Chinese woman. Her name is Zhu Keren. I hope that's the right pronunciation. But she's also known as Jolin Zhu. She's 33 years old and 47 years younger than Ellison. She graduated from University of Michigan and is very low-key. Very little is known about where she's from and how they met. She reportedly lived briefly in Redwood Shores, California, that is, near Oracle's former headquarters after graduation. Media reports describe her as coming from a wealthy family. And so Miss Zhu has been spotted with Larry Ellison, multiple times since 2018. So it seems like the two have known each other for quite some time. And they're believed to have married in 2023, I believe. And it is Mr. Ellison's 5th marriage. Now, the fact that she came from a wealthy family gives me an eerie feeling. Most of the wealthy Chinese are somewhat intertwined with the CCP's power network, or else they wouldn't be able to make the money. If she's from an ordinary family or if she's from a poor family and is truly a gold digger, I'd be feeling relieved. At least you know what her intention is. The fact that she has her family in Beijing and they're somewhat wealthy or influential, that means Beijing can use her family as hostage to coerce her to work for them, right? I mean, I'm not saying there's some issue with her. I mean, she could be totally okay, but the CCP will not let her go. They will take advantage of her relationship and may use her family in China against her. So she has that handicap. Now, the CCP has long targeted wealthy Western men through such personal ties or romantic relations. And this is not without precedent. When Bill Gates divorced, Chinese language circles widely speculated about a Chinese interpreter named Wang, who allegedly played a role. Fox News, here we go. Fox News even had a piece on her. It said that a Gates Foundation interpreter whose I think the name is Wang, was rumored to be involved in one of the Gates. Okay. All right. Well, I think it had to be Bill Gates and not Miranda Gates. But the Chinese woman denied it publicly. So these tactics are part of a broader pattern. Now, let me talk about NVIDIA, which is caught up in the Sino-US rivalry right now. Beijing recently accused the company of violating its anti-monopoly law. This is so ironic. It's such an irony given that virtually everything in China is state-controlled. Everything. The CCP is the biggest monopoly in China. But anyways, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang is originally from Taiwan. And he's happily married to his wife for 40 years, Lori Huang. They have 2 children, Madison and Spencer. However, his children are seen as potential leverage points, according to some Chinese. Online chatter has even suggested that Spencer Huang has a Chinese girlfriend who allegedly became pregnant intentionally. An example of how the CCP tries to infiltrate families of key executives when they cannot steal technologies. Now, I do not know if the claim is true or not, but the CCP is totally capable of orchestrating something like that. When they cannot develop cutting-edge chip technology, they will try to steal it. When they cannot steal anymore, they want to influence key executives. And when that fails, they will focus on their children. All right, so against that backdrop, if Larry Ellison takes control of TikTok, let me come back. This talk is about TikTok and not about NVIDIA. So if Larry Ellison takes control of TikTok, it does not inspire confidence, at least not in me. This is not about prejudice against Chinese spouses. I'm Chinese myself. But they are the weakest link as they can be manipulated by the regime. Just look around. Rupert Murdoch married a Chinese woman. Look how that turned out. And the editor-in-chief of the New York Times has a Chinese wife. Look at what the Times has become. So with all that said, I highly doubt the TikTok deal will come to fruition because too much is at stake for both China and the United States. Trump is not going to Beijing to help Xi Jinping stay in power. The Americans should not and will not accept the so-called Chinese characteristics in the app. On top of that, people like me remain uneasy about the security risks tied to the prospective new owner. These are only 3 issues I identified within a few hours. A closer look at the framework will likely reveal even more loopholes. That's why I remain skeptical that the deal can actually be fulfilled. All right. I hope the internet has not been too bad. And that's all I have. What about the Meta CEO? Someone, Peter Investor M. Okay. His wife is Priscilla, right? She's a doctor. I think she was born here, or she came here at a very young age. But her family is from Shanghai. From what I heard, she was not helpful to Chinese dissidents living in the US when it comes to Facebook censorship. So she did her share of harm to the Chinese dissident communities based in the US when it comes to Facebook helping the CCP to censor them. And it's very sad. It's very pathetic. I think she knows very little about Chinese politics, but her family, given the fact that her family is from Shanghai and may still have families in Shanghai, I mean, it's always happens like this, okay? Your husband is the CEO of Facebook, okay? The press with the Chinese issue. They're going to turn to their Chinese wife for a suggestion. And the Chinese wife knows nothing about Chinese politics or the CCP's ulterior motives or what's actually happening on the ground in Chinese American communities. So they resorted to their Chinese families in Shanghai for suggestions and opinions. And that just ruins everything. That's why I'm personally not against the Chinese spouses, but I have seen too many tragic events that have taken place as a result of these Chinese spouses. It's very sad. So yeah, you asked me about Meta, Facebook. All I can say is Zuckerberg has been poorly advised by his wife over Chinese matters. Poorly advised. So, with that said, all right, let's see what people have for me. I hope the internet holds. Okay. Cool thumbnail. Okay. I had a question. Kevin Job. I had a question, but I forgot. Okay. All right. Wow, our live attendance is so low today. Is this topic not of interest to people? Anyway, I think it's important. Let's see. All right. Someone said Netflix foreign said Trump should offer a visit to visit Xi in China on the condition that they formally recognize Taiwan as an independent nation. You're right. I mean, Trump say, okay, if you want me to go to Beijing, he should send them a long list of everything that we want, including formally recognizing Taiwan as an independent state. Good point. All right. Okay, I'm moving along. Question, comments? Oh, here's one. No, not addressed to me. Paul, someone said, Lei, are you aware red communist China is so very beautiful and you're evil and ugly? I think all I can say is you have an amazing sense of humor. And you probably need to check out the word ugly, how to spell it. I'm not ugly. Anyways, it made me laugh. Uh, anyways, all right. Larry is 81 years old. Yes, he is. He's 81 years old, and he married a 33 years old. They're 47. They're 40. Now that's yeah, they're 48 years apart, not 47. Yeah. All right. Deborah C. Lay. This seems to be a propaganda war. Can China convince the world it's less of a basket case economically than the US? Can China convince the world? I mean, China has been trying to convince the world that its economy is glowingly beautiful, and half of the world believes them. Um, but I don't know. I think you have to talk to the mainland Chinese to get a sense of China's economy right now. Yeah. I think the economic data does not serve any purpose anymore. Okay. All right. Here we have Paul Hoover. Chinese women are high class except you. Okay. All right. I take that as a compliment. All right. You know, the Chinese have a reverse psychology. You know, in China, people cannot speak honestly about their mind. Because of the censorship, so people in China typically cannot speak truthfully. So they always say the opposite thing. So I take that. I assume that you're someone from mainland China and you can't really say what's on your mind. So you're just saying the opposite. So I take it as a compliment. Well, thank you. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, Netflix. Someone said Netflix foreign. I really like your reincarnation story of Sun Yat-sen. I think him being born deaf and mute was to protect him from being brainwashed again. Yeah, that story it struck me. I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, yeah. Someone say consider Starlink as your internet service provider. I'm not so sure about Elon Musk, precisely because, I mean, my issue with Elon Musk is he has criticized a lot of people. He's very outspoken, but he has never spoken out about the CCP. And that concerns me. And his mother is very close. His mother lives in Shanghai, and I think it goes there often, right? So Elon Musk has not said anything negatively about the CCP. And in fact, he has said things that are not very friendly to Taiwan. So I have my principle. I'm not going to risk my internet, you know, yeah, so I'm not going to risk it. I don't know. Until Elon Musk formally let us know his view of the CCP, I will not trust his internet service. Let's put it that way. Maybe he thinks, you know, just like us, but I don't know. And he's not someone who's like shy, or I mean, he's not someone who's not outspoken. I mean, he's very outspoken. He's very vocal. So that's the only reason. I mean, I have nothing against him. I'm just waiting for him to raise his opinion of CCP. William Robel. What would the CCP do to say if Trump said that the United States was moving their embassy to Taipei instead of Beijing? I think, well, Trump is not going to say that, because if he says that, the world will react, and then when the world reacts to that, it's in CCP's favor. So CCP will take advantage of the reaction, the negative, the shocking reaction against Trump. So so that's why I think he won't say that. Um, yeah. All right. Okay. All right, Lei. Love the show. You do a great job. Well, thank you. All right. Okay. Uh, it seems civil. Okay, this is from Jay DeRoma. It seems civil unrest is on the rise in China due to economic issues. Yes, very much so. How much of this do you think threatens Xi's chances of staying in power? It does and it doesn't, because communist leaders do not care if their people suffer economically. Actually, they love poverty, because uh, when people are poor, then they they can be easily manipulated, right? Economic independence or affluence only empower the people. So, so the regime doesn't really care so much about people's suffering, but it does worry when the social unrest gets to a certain scale. When it reaches a certain scale that it could topple the regime, then it would worry. So that's why it's using its police force, its internet censors to crack down, to silence people. Yeah, so plenty of 50-cent chatbots from CCP today. Okay, all right, they're here. That means I'm doing the right thing. Okay, all right. Many Kyla, well, thank you. Why Manchu language began to go down, even if the last dynasty was Manchu? Yeah, I think Manchu. I'm actually a Manchurian. My grandmother is a Manchurian, so I'm not 100% Han. But yeah, we have never heard of Manchurian language being ever spoken in China now. I think it's lost. I have to check it out. Well, thank you for bringing it up. All right. Okay, N.A. Lei, seeing how badly America is doing, what does this mean for China? You want a democratic revolution, but the whole world is becoming less democratic. I do not want a democratic revolution. I think China's transformation to a benign society will take time, will take some time. It will not happen overnight. I do not foresee a bloody revolution taking place in China, although society will undergo tremendous changes. You're right, the world is becoming less democratic. It's very sad. I think democratic rule of law rests on a good respect for how to say. I think democratic societies thrive only in civil society. When people have high moral values. I mean, it does not work when the trust is broken. Right? When the trust is broken, no system works. And I think the problem that we have now is the loss of standards. The reason we have so many conflicts, among countries, even within country, amongst us, the division that we are experiencing, I think is the result of the loss of standards. Hundreds of years ago or 1,000 years ago, I mean, whether in the East or in the West, people have their traditional values and they have faith, whether it's Christianity or Buddhism. I mean, or Confucianism in China, or even Taoism. The fundamental values for humanities are essentially the same. So the standard is there. The cultures may be different. People know there are certain things you cannot do. But now we have lost standards because we've stopped believing the divine, and we started believing ourselves. And when people start to believing themselves so much, then my standard, my value, conflicts or contradicts with yours. So everyone has a different set of standards and values. And so how are you going to reach consensus? So you're not going to create consensus or build common ground because there's no standard, And so then our politicians start to pass so many laws. But the laws are restricting, they're restrictive. And so that's where the problems come from. And all the disputes, all the conflicts, all the arguments are the disagreement over standards or values, what's right versus what's wrong. People do not agree with each other. And then what are you going to do? All right, I think I'll end it here. I don't get any questions. Oh, here's one. Patriot expands. That question disappeared. It went up. Here, where did it go? Did the Nepal situation force China into take the US seriously? I think to some extent it did, but I don't think it dramatically shifted the US-China relations so much. I think the Nepal situation forced the CCP leaders to plan their exit route more carefully. Watching those videos, seeing former officials being beaten up, I think every CCP official is thinking about how to avoid that for themselves. So I'm sure they're planning their exit routes or exit plans. All right, let's see. Okay, that's all for tonight. I'm going to end it here. So someone asked, is anyone in the US government talking about TikTok, or is it just people like us? I don't know. But TikTok, half of the US population is using TikTok. So TikTok has tremendous influence in the US. Who owns it, who actually controls the algorithm, and the role the CCP will play in the post-pardon operation is critical because it has such influence in this country. That's why it matters. That's why I think this topic is very important. All right. Okay. Oh, here's a question from Robert Macarigo. I don't know how to say your last name. But Lei, do you have people in the Trump administration asking or using your advice about the CCP, and will we ever benefit from cutting ties? No, I do not have. I do not talk to any politicians. I don't. So I hope they're watching my programs. I hope all governments watch my programs. Yeah, Yao Hao, is China interested in Israel destruction? What do you mean Israel's destruction? Well, Netanyahu made a comment just like a day ago about China and Qatar spending money, supporting those online bots right? Online trolls, um, to push anti-Israel narratives online. And I think it has. I, this is the first time I've seen the leader of Israel actually naming CCP publicly. Or pointing CCP for its evil doing. So it's interesting. All right. Someone said Lei is too ugly to be married. Okay, I took that as a compliment. All right, you make me laugh. Someone said Lei looks like Jerry Seinfeld. I love Jerry Seinfeld show. It's a great show. I mean, it's hilarious. It's a very funny show. It's a show about nothing, and yet it's hilarious. Um, anyways, okay, bye. Thank you very much. I'll see you in 2 days. Bye bye.